Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Oh, okay, never mind. I thought I found a way to make my phone stay. Will it stay? No, it will not. Okay. We're just going to hold it again, though. Okay, so, it's not really Cars Week, although I guess it technically is. It's my animation videos. But I'm making it Cars Week because I saw Cars 3 for the second time yesterday, and I've finished the Cars franchise already, so I thought I'd give you some videos on cars, which I did one on Wednesday. Thursday I was busy studying my diploma, by the way, so that's why I didn't get a video, so I'm giving you one today and one tomorrow. So I'm going to try and do 3 videos a week because I'm not sure what my work schedule is going to look like, but I might be able to do 4. So, last video was on how Mater, the blue Mater in Radio Springs, is not Mater just based off of timeline stuff. So now I'm going to talk about how Doc came to come across Radio Springs. So we know that Doc was the Hudson Hornet, and was a very famous race car, and he was as good as Lightning McQueen. He was the best in his day. He was like Wayne Gretzky or Michael Jordan. You know, they were the goats of their sport. That was him until he crashed, and of course, like Lightning McQueen said, he was told when he was done. He was told he would never race again, when he probably had a lot more races in him. And that broke his heart, in which he eventually made it to Radio Springs. And of course, when we were watching Cars, my sister came up with a theory that maybe he ended up in Radio Springs the same way McQueen did, which would have worked, except for the third movie. His trainer and friend Smokey said that he ran off to Radio Springs. I'm assuming is Doc wanted to find a place to get away from his past, his racing and everything that happened there. So he decided, since he was from a small town, maybe to move to another small town, and he just happened to stumble across Radio Springs, and Radio Springs clearly welcomed him. Now, of course, the theory that he ended up the same way like McQueen did isn't actually that far off, because, I mean, he could have been training to see if maybe he could return to racing, and then ended up in Radio Springs the same way McQueen did. But then again, when McQueen ended up there, he was very disoriented because he knew life in 2 places. In his trailer driven by Mac, or on the track. So he had no idea what to expect on the open highway because he'd never driven on the open highway. Whereas Doc clearly had, because he was a small town car. He lived there, and that's where he raced mostly. Now, of course, Doc clearly must have gone to school or something, because he was Doc Hudson. He was a doctor. He was, well, a doctor for cars, which would technically be the same as an auto mechanic, I guess. Except he's a car. So, yeah. That's a little weird. So, how he ended up in Radio Springs is a mystery. All we know is that he did escape Radio Springs and he stopped writing to Smokey. So, for Smokey's, like, because if we know what happened when Lightning McQueen crashed, he thought his world had ended, because a big crash like that usually means you're done for racing. He knew that he was probably going to be done, but then he realized Doc was told when he was done. I don't want to be that car. I don't want to be forced out of this thing, out of what I love doing. So he decided, I'm going to go back and train. I'm going to decide when I'm done. Now, of course, Doc, that hurt him. The fact that he couldn't do what he loved because they told him he was done and would never be able to race again, and if he did, would never be able to race well or beat the rookies. Well, that hurt him clearly. But Smokey said, and of course, Lightning McQueen said that racing was his life. That was his livelihood. That's what made him happy in life, and that was what gave him joy. And of course, I'm almost crying now. I have seen Cars 2 twice, and I've almost cried. Every time Smokey mentions that, he's like, well, he went up to Many Springs and the letter stopped. But then all of a sudden, they started back up again. Because McQueen was what made Dog happy. McQueen was like Dog's son. And that's what made him happy. So I think what happened, especially in the first movie, I think my sister mentioned this too, was that Doc saw himself in McQueen. And maybe that's because of the way he ended up at Radiator Springs. Maybe it's because Doc ended up the same way, but maybe a little differently. Maybe Doc, like I said, was training and trying to prove to the racing community that he wasn't done, and then he ended up in Radiator Springs and decided not to leave. Now, of course, we come to the next question of how did Doc die? We'll never know, partially because the only reason Doc was written out of the movies and not recast is because the actor that played him passed away, but he did record some scenes for Cars 3, so that helped. So we're left wondering how Doc died, as it's never mentioned in Cars 2, which I didn't even realize he died in Cars 2. I didn't realize that until Cars 3, but then again, last time I saw Cars 2 before yesterday was grade 6, which was like 11 years ago. That doesn't make sense. 6 years ago. Almost 7. So I'm assuming that maybe he, like we said, he wanted McQueen to be the best. McQueen was like his son, so obviously he wants what's best for McQueen, so maybe he was, and of course, there was a video on this. I don't remember who it was. If I can find the video, I might link it in the description. So I believe what happened was he was probably pushing McQueen to do his best. They were probably out training in the rain, and he flooded his engine. Now, of course, he's a doctor, so why couldn't he just give himself a checkup? Now, of course, my sister said that doctors are very stubborn and don't do checkups on themselves. Very true. Doctors don't normally take care of themselves because they're too busy taking care of other patients, and that's who Doc was. He was busy caring for the top people of Radiator Springs and helping to train McQueen. So I'm assuming that's where he died then. Now, of course, because he's a car, it'd be a little hard to imagine a car dying as, like, humans physically, and, like, did they bury him? Because he's a car. How do cars bury cars? Which, speaking of which, will be my next video, which I'm going to end this video right here. So, be sure to give this video a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and stay tuned for tomorrow's video, which will be on what is going on with the Cars universe and how they are supposed to be humans, but how they're different from humans. Right. See you.